Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another discussion video. Today kickstarts our coverage on the new set 14 archetypes. Particularly today we'll be talking about the Syn Shenron Xeno archetype. Pretty excited to get into it. If you guys are new here, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell so you never miss a video. And if you guys want to help support the channel, there are many ways down in the description to do so. Particularly today, if you want to buy or pre-order any cards you see in today's video, or any TCG cards for that matter, use my link in the description to TCG Player. It does give the channel a bit of a kickback and it helps out greatly. That being said, let's jump right in. Alright, so we'll start by covering the leader and the unison for the strategy. We have Syn Shenron, who is a blocker on both sides. Auto, when you activate a Shadow Dragon extra card from your hand, you and your opponent place the top card of your decks in your drop area. So we're looking at a mill strategy. You can win by milling out your opponent, but I think this definitely falls a bit more in line with like cooler mill, where mill isn't always going to be a main strategy. Granted though, even cooler probably mills more cards per turn than this deck does on average. So this just even looks more so like a strategy where mill is kind of just like a hindrance to your opponent. Like, you can put a lot of pressure onto them if they're drawing a lot of cards. You can kind of not allow them to sit so safely doing that. And you know what, you never know, you might mill like a secret rare or a super combo, whatever the case is. Auto, choose one black Shadow Dragon card in your hand and discard it. When this card attacks, draw one, then switch this card to active mode at the end of the turn. So admittedly, the fact that you pitch to draw is not all that impressive, but some of the main deck cards we'll read will actually kind of make up for that. Awaken, release 4 or less, or 7 more black Shadow Dragon cards on your drop. Untap one, draw one. And then we have the backside. Auto, when you activate a Shadow Dragon extra card, your opponent places the top card of the deck in the drop area. So now only your opponent is milling and not you. It's a little strange just how that effect kind of changes. Like, it was kind of nice that you were filling your own drop for like Overwhelm, let's just say, but you're not going to want to play too many off archetype cards in this deck, and we'll take a look at that in a second. Auto, when this card attacks, draw one. Then this card gains plus 5,000 power for the turn, and at the end of the turn, switch this card to active mode. So we're going to make full use of that blocker by getting him back to active mode at the end of the turn. Activate main / battle once per turn. Spirit boost 1. Choose up to one Shadow Dragon extra card in your hand and activate its activate main / battle skill without paying its energy cost. So you can almost look at that like a Mecha Frieza of sorts. It's a little bit more tame, I guess you could say. Like, it costs a bit more, like costs spirit boost, and you can only do it once per turn. So that's something to look at there. Now let's read the unison for the deck. So we have Toa, Resonance of Shadow. X cost 10k unison. Auto, when your leader card activates a blocker skill, place top card of your deck in the drop area, then add a marker to this card. So a pretty rapid way to gain markers, especially paired with a +1. Draw a card, then choose one card in your hand and up to 3 Shadow Dragon extra cards in your drop, and place them at the bottom of the owner's deck in any order. So you are just cycling through cards there, putting cards back into your deck that you don't necessarily need in your hand. And activate main -7. If your leader card is a Shadow Dragon card, choose up to 7 black Shadow Dragon cards with different character names in your hand and or drop area, and play them. So a little similar to like the regular yellow Shenron ultimate effect for -7. Something to look out for there. I'm not necessarily sure this unison is like super essential for the deck. Like, it's not bad, don't get me wrong, but that new Bardock unison they showed, which we won't really talk about in this video, could also be a really good option for this deck. I could definitely see people choosing to play that over Toa. But anyways, let's get into some of the main deck stuff. Alright, so we're looking firstly at a promo. Now, I believe Bandai posted somewhere they were going to avoid making these tournament pack promos like essential for these strategies. They definitely didn't do that with Syn Shenron Wicked Strike. I think Syn Shenron Wicked Strike is a really solid card, probably a 4 of, honestly. It's your turn 1 play and has some really good effects. So let's give it a read. Auto, if your leader card is a Shadow Dragon card and this card is played from your hand or discarded by a Shadow Dragon card skill, you look at the top card of your deck. If it's a black Shadow Dragon card, you may add it to your hand, otherwise place it at the bottom of your deck. So not many of the dragons have this effect that instead of just me rereading it over, we're going to call it the Scry effect. So when I mention the Scry effect, that's essentially what we're talking about. A lot of the dragons share that. And with that ability, it really incentivizes you to play a mostly Shadow Dragon deck. This way, when you look at the top card, ideally it will be a card you can add to your hand. So you just want to keep that in mind when you're building this. Activate main / battle once per turn for Spirit Boost 1. If your leader card is a Shadow Dragon card, choose up to 1 Shadow Dragon extra card in your hand and activate its activate main / battle without paying its energy cost. So we're mimicking the leader skill there, but because this card is a, basically on play potential replace itself, and it gives you another free extra card once per turn as long as you can pay the spirit boost, it's pretty solid there. Now again, we're going to want to look into unisons that can gain more than 1 marker a turn. So the Toa can do it when your leader blocks, but it kind of depends on what the meta looks like for how often you're going to want to block your leader and probably take damage. So we're going to have to definitely look at that for the unison slot. But anyways, Then we have Syn Shenron, Power of Darkness. We have a 3-drop double strike, auto limit 1 for a black energy. If your leader card is a black Shadow Dragon card, when you remove a marker from one of your unison cards using a Spirit Boost skill, play this card from your hand. Your opponent places the top card of a deck in their drop area, and it also has the scry effect. So pretty cool there, actually. For 1 energy, you get a 20k double striker, and there's a lot of Spirit Boost in this deck. Like we saw it with the 1-drop, for instance. We've seen it with some other cards, and we'll see it with more cards. So that's really good there. Then we have Syn Shenron, Negative Energy Explosion, 4-drop, deflect, double strike, barrier, blocker. He has the scry effect, and activate main / battle once per turn for Spirit Boost 1. Same thing, your opponent places the top card of deck to the drop area, and you get to switch card to active mode, and then you get to activate a Shadow Dragon extra card in your hand without paying its activate main, without paying its energy cost. Sorry. Yeah, so this card is incredible. Now, a lot of times when you're looking at strategies like this, and you're looking at a 4-drop, you're thinking like, how can I cheat this card into play? There's not really any way to cheat this Negative Energy Explosion Syn into play, but because of all the protection it has, deflect, barrier, and it's also a double strike blocker, it's got excellent stats and an excellent skill. You're gonna be pretty much okay casting this for 4. Like, I don't see a universe where you don't want to play this card in your deck. Even though 4 energy can seem a little expensive, this card seems really, really strong for the deck. So that's all the Syn stuff. We'll move on to some of the other dragons. We're going with Oceanus here. So we have a super combo for the deck. Auto Sparking 5. If your leader is black and this card is using the combo from your hand, draw a card. And this card gets plus 10,000 combo for the battle. And then we have Auto Limit 1. If your leader card is black and you choose one of your black unison cards, when you remove a marker from one of your unison cards using a Spirit Boost skill, you may place this card from your hand under the chosen card. If you do, add a marker to the chosen card and draw 1 card. So obviously a searchable super combo within a strategy is great. Honestly, though, I don't really foresee many people using that second auto where you put it under your unison. Like, your super combo is just so vital, both for pushing for game and for defending, that potentially using it just to give your unison a marker, I don't think it's going to be a very, very popular usage of these cards. Now, don't get me wrong, like, in a pinch, maybe you will, but I really just think that's going to never come up. I really just don't think it's ever going to happen. Maybe it would have been a little bit too busted if, like, this effect activated from your drop area. So like earlier in the game you could super combo, and then later on you can put it from your drop under the unison. That'd probably be a bit too busted, but let's be honest, you're probably using your Spirit Boost earlier in the game, I would say. I mean, I guess maybe not, depending on how you're gonna use activate battles on those different cards, those different Syn cards that we read. Yeah, I don't think that second auto is all that great, but a searchable super combo is fine. Then we have Oceanic Shenron, a Negative Energy Explosion, 5-drop, 5k, blocker, counterattack. Choose a card in your hand and discard it. Negate the attack and play this card. If you played a card, your opponent can't attack for the turn unless they place top 4 cards of their deck in their drop area each time. Interesting. This is like a topo. This is like a Vegeta Ready to Rumble in the fact that it's also a blocker after you negate with it. But instead of like forcing cards out of your opponent's hand or energy off their board, you're milling them out each time they want to swing. Now, I can definitely see a lot of matchups where this card can pretty easily be swung through and you're just going to probably lose if that was all the defense that you had. But a lot of other times I can definitely see where this is going to stifle the opponent from wanting to actually swing through and kill you, right? Especially if they're close decking out. Again, those types of decks that draw way too much and you're kind of punishing them for doing that. Permanent during your opponent's turn, reduce energy cost of this card in your hand by 3. So what's really cool is this is not locked to any like leader or archetype, so you can technically play this in Cooler Mill, which is probably gonna be a really strong strategy for them. Funnily enough, this is a 5 cost, so you cannot play it in Janemba Mill, which I think was awesome balancing on their part, because that deck is just super annoying. But it also has a scry ability, which is worth noting. And now we come to the first of these Shadow Dragon extra cards. Permanent, gain Shadow Dragon in all areas. Activate main / battle, limit 1. If your leader card's black, look at the top 5 cards of your deck, add up to 1 black Shadow Dragon card among them to your hand, then shuffle. Then you may choose 1 black Shadow Dragon card in your hand and discard it. Choose up to 1 of your leader cards, and it gains plus 1,000 power for the turn. So notice with all these discards here, you're going to be proccing those scry effects to potentially add another card, so they essentially become like almost costless. And even though it's only plus 1k, this essentially acts like a sensory beam for your leader, making it 16k, so regular 15s don't tie with it and potentially do damage. Moving on to Haze Shenron, we have a 1-drop with a scry effect and an activate main that says once per turn for a black energy. If your leader card is a Shadow Dragon card and you switch this card to rest mode, choose up to 1 black Shadow Dragon card with energy cost of 3 or less in your hand and play it. So actually another nice way to cheat out some of the Shadow Dragons in your deck. This is very similar to the 1-drop yellow slug that cheats out the Lord Slug Super Namekian, so that's pretty cool. Haze Shenron Negative Energy Explosion, 3-drop 15k critical blocker with the Scry ability, and then another auto that says when this card attacks, shoots to one of your opponent's battle cards, send it to the owner's warp, then switch the card to active mode at the end of the turn. Oh, that's actually so good. Like treating it in with Haze Shenron Power of Darkness, and then just getting a free removal on anything, and then resanding it to block at the end of the turn. I love that card. Ultimate Dragon Quake, 1-drop, activating / battle. Again, keep in mind, again, Shadow Dragon. Limit 1. If your leader is a Shadow Dragon card, shoot up to one of your opponent's battle cards with an energy cost greater than the current energy and send it to the owner's warp. At the end of the turn, play any cards sent to a warp by this skill to the owner's battle areas. With their skills negated for the turn, if your opponent has 15 or fewer cards in their deck, place them in their owner's drop areas instead. Okay, so you get a bit of a reward for milling, and if you've milled them so much, then you get to like permanently remove a card. So that's definitely going to be a pretty solid, I wouldn't say like a necessary 4 of, like possibly depending on how much you're actually able to mill the opponent. But yeah, this card definitely seems good. Probably better when you can get the permanent removal, but even when you don't get the permanent removal, you're getting like that kind of like Supreme Kai negate-esque effect, which can be very good as a battle interruption, even if they get the card back at the end of the turn. And just to note, guys, there are some other cards you can actually play in this strategy that come from the old Syn Shenron strategy. You can play Haze Shenron Venomous Mist, where you pitch a Shadow Dragon card and pop something with a greater energy cost than your opponent's energy. It doesn't care what color your leader is, doesn't care what kind of Shadow Dragon you discard, as long as your leader is a Shadow Dragon and you pitch a Shadow Dragon, and that'll actually proc a lot of your Scry effects. And then I have Oceanic Shenron Swift Spirals, which, like, if any of your blockers you want to restand during your opponent's turn, you are able to do that, which is a pretty cool thing to note. Moving on to Untitled Shenron, though, we have a 1-drop with the Scry ability, and another ability that says if your leader card is a Shadow Dragon card, when this card is played, chips a 1 Shadow Dragon extra card in your drop and add it to your hand. That drop area recursion is pretty nice, but probably not going to be a 4 of, because you don't really want to, you know, start with this turn 1 when you're not really going to have those extra cards in your drop. Then we have Untitled Shenron Negative Energy Explosion, 3-drop 20k Deflect Blocker, has a Scry ability, and another effect that says when this card is played from your hand, choose one of your opponent's battle cards with energy cost of 5 or less in their battle area or drop area and place it under this card. Then choose up to one of the chosen card's keyword skills. This card gains that skill until the end of your opponent's next turn. That's actually so interesting. I love that ability. Like, take a critical, take a double strike, take a barrier, whatever you have to do. I think that's just super unique ability. Probably won't be like the main dragon you want to go into, but I think it's actually a really cool niche card to play. Then we have Ultimate Dragon Tackle, activate main / battle. Notice this one costs 2, so if it's good enough, you're going to want to be using those free abilities to use this, right? So if your opponent has a Unison card in play, your opponent places the top card of a deck in their drop area. Then your opponent may choose one of their Unison cards and remove 2 markers from it. If they don't, you draw 1 card, then choose one of your opponent's battle cards and send it to the owner's warp. So this card is probably always going to be like really strong, because it should generally always be a removal if they don't have a Unison. Otherwise, you're going to start like massively quickly removing markers from their Unison. So I think that card is just a win-win. Definitely going to want to be using it with your free play ability, though. And again, you're going to want to be playing a Unison that can build up a lot of markers. Then we have just some more cards you can include in the deck. So we have Negative Energy Explosion, 1-drop, gain Shadow Dragon in all areas, activating / battle, limit 1. If your leader card is a Shadow Dragon card, look at the top 7 cards of your deck, then choose 1, add up to 1 Shadow Dragon extra card among them to your hand and shuffle your deck. Or if you don't have a Unison card in play, play up to 1 Toa Resonance of Shadow among them with a marker on it, and then shuffle your deck. So with this card in mind, being a searcher for the majority of your deck, you're actually probably going to want to play Toa, so you can consistently just put it into play. Then we have Ultimate Dark Dragon Slaying Bullet, which is not a card specific to the Syn archetype, but it's just a really strong card in general. 1-drop counterplay. If your opponent is playing a Unison card, they may either remove a marker from it for every 2 cards in their drop and warp, or place it in their drop area instead of playing it. If they don't, your opponent can only attack 1 more time for the turn. This card's super cool because it gives your opponent a ton of options, which opens up a lot of skill expression for how you use this card and how your opponent reacts to the card. Like, you can either essentially Nimbus them, or they just like lose their Unison potentially, which is super cool. This card gains Shadow Dragon in all areas, so it's actually searchable within this archetype. And then we have active main / battle, limit 1. Your opponent chooses one of their battle cards with an energy cost of less than the number of cards in the drop area and sends it to the owner's warp. So great thing with this card is you can play it in any strategy. It doesn't care what type of leader you have or anything like that. So that's awesome. And of course, now we know that you can play the Syn Shenron Corrupted by Darkness SCR in this deck. It is also considered black in all areas, so you can essentially search for your Unison off of a lot of these different skills. So overall, the archetype looks very, very complete. There are a lot of really cool things you can do with it. It's got good defenses, so it pretty much seems like Bandai's made another solid black mid-range deck, which generally in the past, black has been very aggressive except for like Makikabora. So this is really cool. I like the archetype, thing. It looks good. I want to know in the comments below what you guys think about it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.